Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sanphar Biosecurity program. So today we are short about 40 people registered and representing 17 countries. So the program, our objective is to bring you biosecurity closer and alive to your operation. So therefore, biosecurity reinforce and hopefully securing your business continuity. So I like the recent reminder from OIE, the World Organization for Animal Health. Biosecurity must be strengthened because it matters. So it protects animal health from diseases. It protects human health from animal diseases that are zoonotic. It protects livelihood of farmers, and it protects the world access to food. So the program we put in place to at least contribute a bit to that big picture was made of 9 webinars, so short webinars. So we kick off the session in January, going through the best practices, and we got into the general aspect biosecurity, the 5 principles of good biosecurity plan, purchase and transportation of animals, quarantine, and then we went into the feed water and surrounding of the farm, entrance control and hygiene. Then on the internal biosecurity side, we have seen the cleaning and disinfection, the disease management and stocking density, and compartmentalization and working line. So to achieve this program, we have invited, and I like to say, the best in class in biosecurity from the veterinary faculty of Ghent University, Belgium, who has been, by the way, nominated, as you can see, #1 5 years in a row. So the Department of Epidemiology is led by Professor Jeroen de Wolf, who has spent 20 years in prevention disease field with focus on application of biosecurity. So he has published a book on the subject and also on reduction of antibiotic usage. He is assisted by Nele, Caekebeke. Since 2017, Nele has been very involved around antimicrobial usage reduction too, and training the international public. So she is part of the Biocheck team. Andy Vervaat, new to the team and contributor to the development of an e-learning module of biosecurity. And we have from time to time our veteran, Plamen Nikolov. He is not with us today. Our specialist of biosecurity from Vilofos. So Dr. Nikolov brings more than 20 years of experience in animal health, nutrition, biosecurity, with lots of experience in the field. So his main objective at each session was to share the application benefit of his preferred dry disinfectant called Stalosan F as a tool to support your biosecurity plan. So as usual, and maybe exceptionally, sorry, we will have a shorter session today of about 20-25 minutes. And we are not going to take your question, but we suggest that you send directly to Nele any question regarding the subject today. Okay, so let's go into the subject of today. So the good biosecurity program actually is the one that you can measure and you can benchmark with the industry best. So that's the reason that UGent established this measuring tool called Biocheck. So Nele Caekebeke will explain to you how to use it and what are the benefits? So, Dr. Caekebeke, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Harry. Okay, should be full screen. So thank you for the introduction, Harry, and hello from my part as well to everyone, and welcome to our final webinar. For those of you who have followed since the beginning, we hope you have gained a lot of extra knowledge and are now familiar with the most important aspects of biosecurity. And as Harry just mentioned, today I will present to you our Biocheck.UGent system by which you can quantify biosecurity on a livestock farm. So we already mentioned it a couple of times in previous webinars that there's not just one single protocol for each farm. But that does not mean, of course, that we cannot improve biosecurity. But the question is where to start. And in order to improve something, in order to improve biosecurity in our case, you need to be able to measure it. And in the past, actually, there was not a real way of measuring biosecurity. You would just go to a farm and your gut feeling would say whether a farm was doing okay or whether things could be improved. But it was very difficult to follow up, let alone compare different farms with each other. So that's why our group developed a tool, a system to measure biosecurity. And actually the first version of that was already developed more than 10 years ago, at first for pig production, but later on we also developed one for poultry, where we have now our broiler and layer survey. And now since 2019 already, we also have one for cattle and specific system, which includes veal, dairy and beef. So when I'm talking about our tool, our system, I'm actually talking about a survey because that's what you as a user will see. It's a survey questioning all aspects concerning biosecurity on a farm, the aspects that we have covered during the previous sessions. And most importantly, it's a free tool, so it's available to everyone. The link is here on your screen. And if you're interested, you can check out our website. There's a lot of information on biosecurity, but also the different surveys are available on there. And actually today we already have over 26,000 entries worldwide in more than 70 countries. So it's safe to say that actually we have the largest database on biosecurity measures in animal production in the world. And on the bottom you see the figures for the different animal species. And of course, as the pig one was developed first, it makes sense that here we have the highest amount of data. But for your information, we are constantly improving and developing new surveys. For those of you working in poultry, we're actually planning to launch 5 new surveys, hopefully by the end of the year, but probably it will be the beginning of next year. We will launch surveys for turkeys, duck, outside access. So 5 new surveys are coming your way. Okay, so I mentioned the tool quantifies biosecurity in a specific farm, but of course it can do more than that. Because if you perform a survey on different farms, for example, as a veterinarian, as an advisor, you're going to different farms, you can compare scores of these specific farms with one another because you're using the same system. And I also mentioned that our tool is being used in more than 70 countries, meaning that often you also have the possibility to compare a specific farm with other farms within other countries. So that can be very interesting to see how your farm is doing in comparison to the average farm in another country. Also, follow-up is very important, and I will come back to that a couple of times more. But because we have a system now that can measure biosecurity, we're able to follow up biosecurity scores in time. So follow up the evolution, which is very important for our studies, but also in the field when you have a biosecurity plan, if you're or you want to establish a plan that you can follow up your farm over time. And also important to mention is that our system is not like a survey with, for example, 100 questions. And if you fill in each specific question right, or the answer is the best biosecurity practice, that you will get a score of 100 on 100. It is taking different risks regarding transmission into account. And that's why we say that our Biocheck system is a risk-based scoring system. I hope most of you remember the figure from our second webinar, where we discussed the principles of biosecurity, and we said that not all transmission risks are equally important. Well, this information, this knowledge is included in our surveys, and the higher of importance a certain risk is, the more emphasis that is put on it in our survey. For example, direct contact between animals is very important and poses a very high risk for transmission of diseases, meaning that questions related to contact between different animals will have a higher influence on the end result. So, as I mentioned already, the surveys exist for different animal species. We're planning to launch more in the future, but at the moment, pig, poultry, and cattle. And they are all divided into different subcategories covering the topics of external and internal biosecurity. And these subcategories follow more or less the topics that we've discussed in the previous sessions. Think about water and feed, cleaning and disinfection, carcass management, things like that. So you will see that same subcategories coming by. And also each specific subcategory has a certain amount of questions, and then the total amount of questions, it kind of depends on the animal species for which you're filling in a survey. The broiler survey, for example, contains just under 80 questions, but then our dairy survey, for example, contains more than 120 questions. Because of course you can imagine for dairy you have the entire aspect of milk production, so there are a lot of more questions concerning that. But although that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of time that you have to invest in filling in the surveys, they're actually quite straightforward and quite easy, because most questions only cover or demand an answer yes or no, or sometimes. So it's actually going very fast, and if you're a bit familiar with the surveys, it can take you no more than 20 minutes to fill in a survey. Of course, after people have filled in a survey, they will get a report, and I will zoom in on it so you can read some of the things. So this is an example of a broiler farm, and what you see is that this specific farm is getting scores for the different subcategories, as I mentioned before. You will also get a subtotal for the entire external biosecurity measures, and also one for internal biosecurity. And then in the end, which you can see on the right, is you get a total overall biosecurity score as well. What we also provide in the reports is reference values, or benchmark values if you want. And those are there to compare your farm with the average farm in the world, which is always a column that will be present. But as I mentioned, we have quite some countries who have already used our system. But if we have 40 or over 40 entries of your specific country, for example, then we will also provide you with an average of your country. We decided to make it 40 because it makes no sense to compare your farm with 1 or 2 or maybe 10 other farms in your country. So that's why in some cases it is possible that the column with country average is not present. And then finally, what you can also see in this report is that some scores are highlighted in red, which means that a specific farm is scoring, or this specific farm is scoring below the average. So this can help to set priorities and to focus on those aspects that are in need of improvement. So the results are depicted here in a table, but what we also include in the report is a visual way of representing the same data. And this is by means of these spider plots. On the left, you see the scores for external. On the left, on the right, you see internal biosecurity. And the idea here is that the bigger the blue area is, which is the area representing a specific farm, the better. So the more your score is going to 100, the better you're doing on a biosecurity point of view. And whenever the blue area is bigger than the purple one, it means you're doing better than the average farm in your country or in the world, whichever data is available. Now, of course, just filling in a survey, getting the report, that won't change anything. The report is just there as a tool to help you get insights as a farmer yourself, or maybe as an advisor, as a veterinarian, as a company, to guide your clients. And it's there to help you gain insights into the strong and the weaker points of a farm, and to help you set priorities, as I already mentioned. So we see our tool as a basis for setting up a biosecurity plan and to start improving. Now, everything that I just mentioned is completely for free. There's no small letters behind that. You can completely use our tool for free. The only thing, if you're using it or if you already tried our tool, you will see that you have to give our permission, or give permission to us, I have to say, that we can use your data for research. Because of course, everything was developed within our faculty, within our university, and with your information from throughout the entire world, our new PhD students, current PhD students, can do a lot of analysis and research on that. So that's the only thing that we ask, is that we can use your data, all data, anonymously, of course. There's no way in tracing back which farm is from which client and so on. That's the only thing. But access to all surveys and the reports with the table and the spider plots is completely available to everyone who is interested. But then, of course, the last couple of years, we got a lot of questions from people who are doing the advisory as a daily job. They have a consultancy agency maybe, or you have a big company of veterinarians, and you want that advisory, that coaching maybe of your clients one step further. And for those people, we developed some extra functionalities to make your work easier and faster. So everyone that is making an account on our website can have his own personal dashboard where all your entries are listed, and you can download the reports. Now, if you are a paying customer or an advanced user, as we call it, you will get access to additional functionalities. Those are indicated with the blue arrow. And I will just cover the most important ones of them right now with you. So one of the, I think, in my opinion, the best additions is the fact that we offer our advanced user an advanced report. Because, you know, if you're giving advice to a farmer, to a client, in our case specified on biosecurity, and you want to make this advisory very tailored to the farm, to the specific needs and situation, that this will take you a lot of time. I have done this during my PhD, and it took me over a couple of hours for each farm to really make a good report specified to the specific farmer. And what we provide to you is an extra functionality that will automatically generate an advisory report based on the answers given in the survey. And then you can still adjust the report, make small additions, remove small things, but just overall give you a basis that you can work with, which will save you which will save you a lot of time as a consultant or an advisor. Now we also have additional ways to compare data. So I showed you in the basic report that you can benchmark a specific farm with the world or with your country if that data is available, but you can also make benchmarks of your own. You can also compare groups that you're making yourself that are of interest to you. If you're a large integration, for example, and you want to know how your average farm is doing within all the farms you have in your portfolio, then you can do this with this new functionality. You can also make goals for your clients or customers or your farmers that they have to reach. For example, if you're saying I want you all to reach a score of 70 for feed and water management, those are the kind of things that you can add here. And then also you can make a report out of it, which you can add to your advisory. So it's very, very modifiable, and whatever your needs are, you can find it in this extra functionality. And then another one is that, I already mentioned it, is follow-up is so important. And nowadays, or in the past, I have to say, you needed to fill in a biocheck, for example, 1 year ago, you filled it in, you did an audit on the farm. The next year, you're going back to that farm and you needed to fill in the biocheck completely from scratch. And also there was no link between the different entries, which were from the same farm. Well, nowadays, you can just enter your previous audit that you've done, change the different things that have changed on the farm, whether they improved or whether they they didn't improve whatsoever. And then out of that, you can draw a lot of different graphs to really visualize what the farmer has done in between that specific period. It sounds very simple and very silly, and it is very simple, but a lot of people are really in need of things to make it visual, how they are doing, whether they're improving or not. And we see that this actually has a huge effect on progression that is made on farms. And then finally, apart from still some smaller functionalities, our advanced users also have access to our e-learning modules. And I'm not sure whether we already mentioned this in a previous webinar, but these are short online lectures with a lot of examples, a lot of small exercises to really test yourself, test your knowledge regarding different topics on biosecurity. So these are things you can do in your own time, whenever you're free, at your own tempo. And after you completed the modules, you will also get a certificate that you have followed them and that you got the knowledge that was in the specific modules. Now I've covered with you the way that we work and what our biocheck system is, but I also want to mention how we advise to really do a biosecurity audit, because it sounds very simple, but from our experience, there are some things that should be taken into account or which are important to mention. First thing is, of course, you have to make an appointment. But here it's very important to clearly state to your farmer why you are doing the farm visit, why you are filling in a survey, and what the advantages are for the farmer. Because you want your farmer to be as open and honest as possible. And if he or she has the idea that you're there to check them, to do an audit, and that there will be a fine or whatever negative consequences, probably your farmer will not be completely honest, which is of course a human thing to do. But if you're clearly stating which benefits can come out of this audit, then you will see that a lot of farmers are more willing to cooperate. Because of course, and I will come back to that in point 2, we advise, or we always say, to do a farm visit. Of course, with COVID, it was a bit difficult, and some people asked whether they could do the audit through the phone maybe, but we really advised against that, because it's important that you, as a person doing the audit, that you're really seeing the farm, that you see the animals, see how your farmer is doing his daily job. Because here, when you're doing the farm visit, it's important to ask the farmer to do or to guide you the way he or she would normally do his daily tour around the farm. So make sure they don't give you the most convenient way or the fastest way to see the entire farm. No, make sure you know how they do it on a daily basis, because that will give you the most accurate view of how they're doing things. And while doing your tour around the farm, you can already start filling in your survey. There will be a lot of things that you don't need to ask the farmer. You will just see them and you can already answer them. But of course, there are still some things which, you won't be able to know unless you're quite familiar with the farm. For example, questions related to the feed delivery truck. Well, it has to be a very good consequence that the feed delivery truck is just there at the same time that you are there. So probably you will need to ask certain things to the farmer because you're not able to witness them yourself. And then of course, oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. So we advise to do it first on paper and then afterwards refill or redo the survey online. Why? It sounds like a lot of extra work, I know, but there are really quite some benefits in first doing it on paper. For once, you're always never sure whether you can bring papers or electronics to the farm. And a paper is more easily to ditch than your phone or your tablet, of course. But if you're doing the first one on paper, it's very easy to make extra notes. Maybe you're seeing certain things which you want to ask the farmer afterwards. You're noticing specific things who you found of interest. You can write it down. Also, all the questions or the things that the farmer is mentioning during your farm visits, you can write it down on the paper and really think about it afterwards. Another thing is the survey is built up with the different subcategories. But of course, that's not always the way that you will visit the farm as well. So on paper, it's very easy to go from question 1 to 50 and back. So it's just, in our opinion, it gives you much more flexibility to fill it in on paper. And then when you're back in the office at home, fill it in online and rethink everything that you've seen, that the farmer has mentioned, because that will give you the most accurate view of the farm. And that way the audit will be of a very much higher quality than if you already filled it in completely in the beginning online. So that's why we advise to do it like that. Afterwards, you will get a basic report, or if you're a paying customer, you can use our different functionalities to generate advice, to give suggestions to the farmer. And again, I'm already mentioning it for the third or the fourth time this webinar, but follow-up is very, very important. And we advise to re-evaluate the farm and this biosecurity situation every 6 to 12 months. Because you want to give your farmer time to make changes, but don't give them too much time to forget about the things that you discussed. So around that period is ideal. And to close off, I just want to mention our technique, or the way that we are using within our group, and that's the technique of check, improve, and reduce. So evaluating the biosecurity on a farm is, of course, the check part. And then you want to start and improving biosecurity levels. Now, ideally, if you can improve biosecurity, it will also reduce the chances of your animals getting sick, which will reduce then again the need for using antimicrobials. So I hope it's very clear that a thorough evaluation is really needed before you can start improving. And that everything you're doing, your advice, your improvements, suggestions are tailored to the situation, because just general remarks, general folders, they just won't do it. You really have to guide people because they have a lot of other things to think about, a lot of additional problems. So it's very important to give them a practical and tailored advice to their farm and their needs. It's always also best to write down a plan. It's a human thing, but if we have something written down, it will improve our feeling of responsibility, and it will emphasize, or it will help in having farmers and people working towards certain goals. So ideally, when you're back in your office and you have your report ready, print it out and give it to your farmer, have a copy yourself, and maybe have some copies for other advisors from the feed mill, from the hatchery, I don't know, but that all people are aware of the plan. Because that's very important. I think I've mentioned it in a previous session that the plan that you agree upon, it should be agreed upon by all parties. So not only you as an advisor and the farmer, but also other responsible persons, maybe there's another herd veterinarian, all the people have to work towards that same goal. And then also, of course, in the plan, it's important to have like small goals, little small things that a farmer can change on the short term, and then also have already ideas, suggestions, concrete things for the future. Because those small things are actually very important to motivate your farmer, and whenever they can already change the smallest amounts and they also see that in their report that their score is going up, it's very motivating. So make sure that you're very enthusiastic and positive no matter how big the improvements are. And then again, of course, follow up, it's crucial. Call your farmer from time to time, ask them about their progress, whether they are experiencing difficulties or not, whether you can help them. Just make sure that your farmer does feel supported in making all the changes. With that, I would like to finish this final webinar. As Harry said, you can send your questions directly to my personal email address or to our Biocheck email address. If you have questions regarding the webinars, regarding our products, just general questions regarding biosecurity, just don't hesitate and send us an email. So I really hope you enjoyed this series. I really enjoyed it myself. I want to thank Vilofol Sanphar again for working with us and giving us the opportunity to collaborate. And hopefully we will see some of you in the future. So thank you very much, and yeah, hope to see you soon.